Good morning, everyone. Hello, 3+1 students. Hello, any other students who might be watching. If you're watching this presentation, hopefully it means that you're at least thinking about grad school, if not already deciding to apply to programs. And hopefully at whatever stage in the graduate school process you are, this will give you a little bit of extra information and that little bit of help you might have been looking for. So I'm going to go get started with our graduate school presentation. So if you're here, again, hopefully you've already been thinking about graduate school. But if you need just a little bit of extra convincing, like, oh, maybe is this for me? Is this not for me? Here are some of the benefits. And if there's something that you're interested in, then keep watching. One of the major things that all of us in the 3+1 team see when we have students come to us for graduate school advice is they're thinking about a specific job. And especially for a lot of psychology majors and law and justice, also some different biology majors, specific careers that you might want to enter into would really be opened up by getting a graduate degree of some kind. So for example, just speaking from my own experience advising psych students, a lot of social work fields, a lot of counseling, clinical psychology, mental health work, a lot of those professions are going to require, if not make it preferable to have a master's degree or a doctorate. So if you're considering entering a field like that, then you might want to consider getting your graduate degree sooner rather than later, so it opens up all of those good possibilities. There's also, in not just fields that mainly require masters, but any field, a greater earning potential. A recent study from the Bureau of Labor Statistics shows that on average, there is an 18.3% greater earning potential if you have a master's or higher versus coming out with a bachelor's. So certainly something to consider. Also, graduate degrees can be really good for personal growth. I consider myself a lifelong learner. I know many other people on our team, and maybe some of you might be. For that reason, graduate degrees are really, really wonderful. You might especially want to consider a doctoral or thesis track degree if you consider yourself a lifelong learner. Those lend themselves really well to working in the field of scholarship, getting into higher ed from the teaching side of things as a professor, and doing continued research in your field. So graduate degrees can be really great for that. In addition, I'm especially thinking of you business students and communication students. There are so many networking opportunities to be had within a graduate degree, especially something like an MBA or a communications degree. You can find a lot of really great other professionals in the field who are getting into things that you're also into. And you can all sort of network together and help each other along the career ladder. And if you're kind of interested, but not 100% sure if grad school might be for you, we also like to encourage the option of senior privilege, which is something you can take advantage of during your senior year with us at Rowan. You can take up to 2 graduate classes during your time here, 1 in each semester, as an undergrad and for the undergraduate rate. Now, of course, this is dependent upon things like instructor permission, GPAs, advisor permission, but on the whole, if you're interested in senior privilege, know that all of us at Rowan will do everything we can to accommodate that because we love when students get interested in pursuing graduate degrees. So if you are interested in a timeline, here is something that I've pulled together based upon my own experience in graduate school, my fellow advisors around me, and also what I've seen from my students. You're going to want to start thinking about it as soon as you possibly can, kind of like maybe when you started the college search back in high school. You might have gone to a bunch of different schools on a tour. You might have looked them up online. You might have gotten information packets. You want to do a really similar thing for graduate school, except cast that net really, really wide. Find as many colleges and programs as might be appealing. You might even have like 10 to 15 because you're going to start narrowing them down, but you want to start really, really broad first to sort of determine what exactly appeals to me. But once you've narrowed that down, and we'll go through that on a further page, once you've narrowed that down, you'll want to look at all of the requirements. And that's something else we'll get into as well, deciphering all of those. That will help you determine what you need for each school. Does the school want a personal statement from me? Do they want me to take a GRE or a GMAT? Is this school looking for 3 letters of recommendation? Do they just want 2? These are things you'll also want to know in advance so you can plan and budget your time better. Then the third step, you're going to want to apply and check those deadlines. You might think, oh, well, maybe they'll all have me apply when I'm done my spring semester. Or maybe I have to wait until right before their semester starts. Every single program is going to be different. Every single program will start at different times. They will want you to submit your materials at different times. And this is something you'll want to keep track of so you don't miss any deadlines. And then once you've applied, you'll wait and compare offers. Now, kind of like looking for the best financial aid package or scholarship for colleges in your bachelor's degree, you'll find yourself doing a similar thing most likely for your graduate degree. And also based upon a list of factors you may have already compiled. And that list of factors will look a little bit like this. You'll want to look at every single piece of these programs that you can to make sure that you're finding the one that's the best fit for you overall. Now, you may need to compromise on certain aspects, we all do, but these are some important things you'll want to keep in mind. Keep in mind the program. Look at the curriculum. Most master's degrees will have 10 courses, around 30, 31, 32 credits, and they'll spread them out typically over 1.5 to 2 years. Most people do the 2 years. You can speed run it in 1.5. Some programs may even have you space it out to 3. But look at those 10 or 11 or so classes. Decide, is this too similar to something I've already done? Or is this taking me in a direction I'm not really sure I want to go? Or does this look like everything I've been hoping for in a degree? And the ones that spark that feeling of, oh, this is everything I've been hoping for, those are the ones that you're going to really want to make note of and hold on to. Because the worst thing would be to be in a degree and to spend all of this time and money, and then you find out you don't really love it. So definitely consider how the program is structured and whether these courses are useful to you. Also consider the location. If you're a 3+1 student, I'm boldly assuming that you may have been commuting to college, to RCBC, to RCSJ. If you had to take any classes in Glassboro, hopefully it wasn't too far. But that's also something else to consider. We do have fantastic programs here at Rowan. I know that Rutgers Camden also has some really great ones. If you are close to Rutgers New Brunswick, they have good ones too. Stockton, again, if you are close to that, TCNJ. There are commutable options. There are plenty of fantastic programs in New Jersey, but there are also plenty of fantastic programs elsewhere. And if you want to move away to a different school, definitely look at that. Look at the city that it might be in, look at the surrounding area, consider how that stacks up to commuting. Because ultimately that's down to you. And that is a big factor to consider. Also look at the cost. So I know this is one that we are all familiar with. Unfortunately, it's the college game we play. But factor that in and look at whether they offer things called fellowships or grants or anything like that. I'll go into those in more detail later, but they are ways for high achieving students to earn, in part or full, an education from that university. And I know that many of them are also complicit upon you being like a professor there, an adjunct, anything like that while you are earning your degree. If you're interested in something like that, those can be a great cost-saving way to earn your degree. And also, if you're interested in taking your degree into the research field, a really great way to get that research experience. And that's something you can find out by digging deeper into the content of the programs that you're looking into. Also consider the selectivity. Rowan, I believe, is hovering around like a 70-75% acceptance rate, which is really, really good. And I know that they still tend to be pretty accepting for their master's and doctoral programs. Obviously, there's some more competitiveness there. There's fewer spots in, but it still tends to be not as selective as many, many schools that are out there. Consider that as well. I would recommend, if your dream school is super selective, still apply to it anyway, but also keep some schools like Rowan in there just in case, because if you apply to a bunch of schools, you might get into all of them, or you might not. And it's really great to have that backup plan. Also consider the mode of delivery. I know that many of you, psych students especially, have the option to take your whole degree online if you would like. And I know many of you, judging by how hard it is to get seats in those classes, really, really love the online options. There are a fantastic variety of online degrees. Rowan has some really great ones. We've got Law and Justice. I'm pretty sure we have a psych program that's all online now. Don't quote me on that one. And I know that Drexel has some fantastic online programs. Rutgers has some too, I believe. Pretty sure Temple does. But if that is something that's important to you, know that you can find good programs that are reputable where you can get your degree online. And if that is something that matters a lot to you, factor that into your search. Put that in and always keep checking. When in doubt, ask an advisor if that's a mode of delivery that you still want to keep with. And then also, my final thing that I would suggest is consider how practical the degree you're getting is. And that might sound kind of odd to consider. Well, I know I want a master's or a PhD. Why would it matter if it's practical? I want that. Consider how practical it is to the field you want to go into in the future. Is this a field that requires a degree right away? Or is it better to wait? Because timing is everything. I know a lot of people like to go right into a master's program or a doctoral program straight from undergrad, and I think that's great. I know a lot of people also like to take a few years off, get out into the working world, see if their dream job really is living up to the dream, and then go and get a degree from there. Consider the type of person that you are and the type of needs that you have from your grad degree and your future career, and kind of weigh that. Is it practical to get this degree now? Or is it better that I wait and see if this is the degree I really want? And I would suggest, I am very much a list person. I like to make spreadsheets for a lot of things. I like to write it all down. If your brain works like that, I would highly suggest writing it all down and weighing which program is in the end best for you. And now we're on timelines. So you've got a whole bunch of different programs you're considering. Maybe you've got like 2 or 3 that are your top ones, and you're getting ready to apply. I grabbed, for all of you law and justice students here, a sample of criminal justice programs from nearby areas. And you will see that every single one of them has different deadlines. And some of them might even be while you're still in school. Do not worry about that at all. One of the number one questions I get is, but I'm still a student. Why would I apply to grad school when they want my transcript, but I'm not done yet? Don't worry about that. It's really common. A lot of schools will either do that and accept you conditionally on the fact that you will presumably pass your last semester with the required grades if you've had the required grades so far, or they may request that your final transcript get sent afterwards, and you will have to get it sent afterwards. But moral of the story, don't let that be a deterrent. And also, just don't forget about the deadlines. I say this as someone who sometimes forgets deadlines if they're not written down, but keep them somewhere where you'll see them all. Make sure that you're getting all the stuff in there. And then all you've got to do is wait, knowing that you've done what you can. And before you can do the waiting thing, you've got to do the submitting your application thing. So I've grabbed here for all of you psych people who might want to do research in psych. PhDs in psychology are really good for that. And you can also get them right after you've completed your bachelor's. No need for the master's in between. I've grabbed some sample admissions requirements. And these are pretty standard undergraduate transcripts. Many of you, I'm assuming, won't have graduate transcripts, but if you've taken senior privilege classes, they would get sent over separately. A personal statement is also really, really common, and letters of recommendation. Some schools may ask for what is called a GRE. That's kind of like the SAT, but for grad school. It asks you about reading, it asks you about math. If you have to take one called a GMAT, that is more business-based, and it is definitely a lot heavier on the math. But that is kind of going out of style for a lot of schools. I think if your GPA is kind of hovering, 3.0 is what I've typically seen for most minimum GPA requirements for graduate degrees. If you're kind of hovering and you're at like 2.9, 2.8, something like that, but you're a really strong applicant in a lot of other ways, I would still apply. Most of us on the team say still apply, go for it. But if in that case a GRE or a GMAT is required, you will absolutely want to take that. A good score on that can balance out much of the GPA stuff if the school is looking at it that way. And we've seen cases where that does happen. But if you are way above the minimum GPA and you're at like 3.8, 3.9, I would recommend in that case that you do not have to take the GRE or the GMAT. So always factor in if it's optional, do you feel you really need to take that or not? Because again, worst thing to take an unnecessary test, but also pretty bad to miss out on a test that might be necessary, and then you might not get in. So consider that. Also, if in doubt, always talk to your advisor. We love appointments about this kind of stuff. We love hearing all the ways you guys are succeeding and getting ready to prepare for all this exciting stuff. All right, so here are some key things to keep in mind as you go on to the next step in the process. Like I mentioned, the GRE, also requesting your transcript. If you are going from Rowan as an undergrad to Rowan as a graduate student, you will not need to do this step. Rowan University will pull it automatically, and it will just filter in there after you've graduated. I think it takes like a week or two, but it will get there. But if you're going to any other school, you would request your transcript from the National Student Clearinghouse. There is a small fee for it. I think it's around $5 to $10. And you can also electronically track when the transcript gets there. So I think that relieves a lot of the anxiety, at least for me personally, it would, of knowing, did this actually get where it says it's going to get to? So you can cross that off your list at least. And you may also need to prepare a writing sample. And over the next couple of slides, I will give you some hints and tips for how to be very successful with that. All right, but for now, we're going to move on to letters of rec because I get so many questions about these. I know it can be really tough as a 3+1 student, especially because when you come to Rowan, you've got less than a year to get to know all of your Rowan professors. And you're probably thinking, how do I get letters of recommendation? I need a personal relationship with these people. Well, I am here to tell you that your professors at RCBC can be really valuable resources. Your Rowan professors can also be really valuable resources. You only need one class to make an impression. And if that class happens to be a lab or a capstone or a seminar, that's even better because they're seeing your work at its best and most final and most polished. And they're probably seeing your area of interest and what you want to do with your work in this world. So I would highly consider those professors. I would also consider balancing out a little bit. It's really good to obviously show the future school that you're going to go to that you really excel in your scholarship. But it's also good to get that balanced character witness type stuff. So if you took part in an internship, you can ask a trusted supervisor. If you've been working at your job for a while, feel free to ask a boss or even a trusted colleague who's your boss's level maybe in another area, but you know them well. If you volunteer, you can most certainly ask the supervisor of your volunteer group. If you do pretty much anything else that there is someone who is above you and you report to them and they can be a witness for the wonderful things you've done, those can count for a letter of recommendation. And those can be just as valuable as the academic ones that people traditionally think of when they think of letters of recommendation. You can also ask your advisors, by the way. If you have a relationship with us and you've met with us a lot over your time and you're like, okay, this person knows me pretty well, feel free to ask your advisors. We really love this kind of stuff. And also feel free to run by us any idea for a person you might have for a letter of rec, because we can say, hey, that person is good, or maybe you might want to consider someone else. Maybe, I don't think they can speak to you too well for that. But when in doubt, just always ask. All right, and now we're on writing the personal statement. So I wish I could give you more of a better answer for how to do this, like a form letter type thing. But unfortunately, it's very specific because different schools want different things and different programs certainly want different things. Your biology personal statement or med school will look way, way different from your law and justice law school statement. Completely different fields, completely different expectations, but there are some general things to keep in mind. So you should always show the person that you're applying to that you've read up on their program and you know why this program is good for you and why you will be a good fit for the program. Because otherwise, they might not think that you're caring too much about that program. They want to hear specific details. Really get into it. I'm excited to work with Dr. So-and-so because their work in microbiology aligns with my interests. You know, I love the focus on diversity in education that this education program offers. Really get into it, specific courses, anything. Also, mention your goals. What will you do once you earn this degree? And how will this degree help you to attain those goals? Like I said, highlight specific faculty. They love that. It shows that you've really put time and effort into their program. And that's what they want. They want dedicated students who are really going to care about the school and forge a connection, and who are going to go out into the world and do great things. Also, give it a clear focus. It might be easy to just jump from paragraph to paragraph, just listing out all of your accomplishments like a resume. It is certainly tempting if you guys have a really great scholarship and are really excited about the program. But it also helps to give it a little focus and a little shape. And you can do that maybe by giving a story. Have you always been interested in communications? Is this psychology program something that you've worked with and you've thought, hey, I want to do this for the rest of my life? Just give it some sort of a framing to it. And feel free to brag a little bit. If you are someone who does not normally talk about themselves and who does not feel comfortable with that kind of thing, me, don't be self-conscious about it. They really want to hear all of the ways that you excel. But for things not to do, don't be overly generic. Please don't do that. That is a big no-no. Don't use too many quotes. If you have quotes by, like, for example, if you waived your right and were able to look at the letter of rec, I would not recommend doing that. Some schools get kind of weird about it, but if you choose to do that, please don't include too many quotes from that. They don't like reading a lot of quotes. Also, please don't go over the word count too much. You can go over it by probably about like 10 to 15 words and people will be like, okay, that's a sentence, or there's some crucial words in there that they couldn't take out. But if you go any more than that, they might think that you're someone who disregards the directions. And they don't always love that in an applicant. But if no count is given, assume no more than 1 page. I would say no more than 1 page double-spaced, but that's around 250 words. So one page single might be fine. That's 500. That's pretty standard. And don't make it completely your resume. Like I said, feel free to add details from your resume that are really complimentary, but don't make the whole thing just a list of, you know, here's where I worked, here's where I went to school, here's what I do to volunteer. If they ask for your resume, they'll get that already. So you don't want to give them more of the same. And here we are with the resume. Some schools, especially in education or in business, do want a copy of your resume because unlike specific degrees, like I'm thinking of like law and justice or clinical psychology, even like a mental health counseling type one, give you the skills for a specific type of field, but not a specific job, versus an education program or an MBA will definitely prepare you for a very specific job. If you're getting an MBA with an accounting focus, they're assuming you're doing something accounting related. So they'll want to see what you've done before that's similar to that. So you should tailor your resume to include relevant career experience as well as scholastic achievements. Feel free to kind of make it a blend between a resume and a CV if you've had a CV. If not, don't worry about that part. But if you do not have any relevant work experience or internships, emphasize skills based on the program description. I give, for example, a dear friend of mine as an example. She worked with foster children and she babysat them a lot, basically her entire high school experience. She wanted to be an elementary school teacher. But until she actually stepped foot in a classroom, she had zero work experience as a teacher. So what she did is she put on her resume the fact that she worked with the foster children and the fact that she babysat. And they took a look and they were like, you are super prepared to work with kids. So if you've got anything like that, don't hesitate to put that on there as well. If it's a volunteer thing, put that down too. Put down anything that might work based on the program description. Right. And language of grad school. So there are some specific terms that you may encounter that you might not have heard of before. I'm going to just outline a couple of these. Fellowship, we've already been through that one. Terminal degrees. So this is what we call the last degree you earn, whether that is a master's or a doctorate. Think of like the terminal in an airport. That's where your trip is ending. This is where your school trip is ending. And for some people, a master's degree is perfect. I would say for most people, a master's degree is perfect. But if you know that you want to end up doing some sort of research in your field, you might not want to choose a terminal master's degree because that might not prepare you for what the PhD application wants, which is typically a sample of your work, kind of like a thesis. They often want to ask for a thesis, but if you were not in a thesis track program, research would certainly suffice. And here's our thesis track program. I am not as familiar, unfortunately, with the sciences and with medical school, but I can certainly say for a lot of the programs in the humanities, for example, your law of justice, your law and justice, if you were liberal studies, anything with philosophy, anything with religion, pretty much anything like that, those degrees might offer you a thesis track. And that is perfect for if you want to go into further study with a PhD. That is designed where you would produce a lengthy paper, around 75 or more pages, typically double spaced, in order to graduate. And that is really good because for a lot of people, that becomes their writing sample. So consider that if you read those things on the site, if you're like, I don't really want to continue beyond the master's, you don't need a thesis track. It does not mean anything to your future employers, whether you've done a thesis or whether you have not. That is, in most cases, purely for either personal reasons because you love learning or for further entry into academia. And again, if you have any questions about that, please schedule with your advisors. We would love to talk to you about your different degree options. And final thing for options, if you've made it through this whole thing and you're like, this sounds maybe like it's for me, maybe not right now, consider that grad school can be expensive. If you get a fellowship, that is absolutely wonderful. But if you don't get a fellowship, it can be pretty costly. It's also at minimum a 2-year commitment. Like I said, you can speed run it in a 1.5 years. I know people who've done it. I know programs that offer that. For most people, though, it ends up being a 2 to 3 year journey for a master's degree and like 5 to 7 for a PhD. You might also want to consider things, like I've mentioned, does your career really need a master's degree right away? If it needs it for an entry-level job, you certainly would want to get that so you can get your foot in the door. But if not, feel free to just go to work first and decide whether or not that's worth it to you to get that master's degree. Also consider, is this a field you're interested in? Is this something you can afford at this point in your life? Or is it something that's better to wait? I know many people, even professors, who've gotten degrees much, much later in life and been perfectly happy with their choices. Sure, it might require, changing your road in life a little bit, but they arrived at the same end as you might if you had gotten your degree sooner. But they'd done it with the knowledge that what they did was what they really, really wanted. So always consider that. And if you guys need to know anything that is close to home, we have all of these wonderful degrees. I compiled them based on what are our most popular. So we obviously have a lot of psychology things here. But no, there are also some really great degrees for biology, law and justice, liberal studies. That can be pretty much anything, right? Business. We've got, Rowan has a fantastic MBA, by the way. I would highly recommend that. But yeah, we've got so many things here. We've got so many things close by in Jersey and so many options. So if you had needed help getting started, here's a place to start that you can always consider. And thank you for watching my video. I hope it was really informative. And if you have any questions, please schedule an appointment with your advisor. Like I keep mentioning, we would love to talk to you about this. And we can certainly always connect you to people who've either been through degrees similar to one you're considering, or department heads, professors, anything like that. Maybe even some of your own professors have taught graduate courses. I would always lean on your advisors as a resource. We are here to help you, and we are here to help you succeed, especially.